Educational Communications and this station present Environmental Directions with Nancy Pearlman. On this series, we explore the effects of human influence on the Earth's ecosystems and discuss solutions to environmental problems which affect the quality of life on this planet. Environmental Directions gives you the kind of information you need to help you participate in decisions impacting your community, the nation, and the world. Now, here's your host, Nancy Pearlman.
Hello. For the next half hour, we are going to be talking about the country of Malta in the Mediterranean Sea with my guest, Michelle Buttigieg. She is the North American representative for the Malta Tourism Authority. She has extensive experience in luxury hospitality, sales and marketing, and major luxury hotel openings. She is a member of the United States Tour Operators Association and Virtuoso, which is a luxury travel advisors consortium. The Malta Tourism Authority has received over 9 Travi Awards, which is a prestigious travel industry award. Welcome. It's a pleasure to have you with us.
Thank you for having me, Nancy.
I think more Americans should know about Malta, and yet, because it's a small country with about 500,000 population and just a few islands of just 127 square miles, it is not generally on the tourist travel agenda, and yet you have an 8,000-year history. You have had your islands inhabited since 5,900 BCE. Could you tell us about this unique country?
You're right, Nancy. The Maltese archipelago consists of 3 islands located in the middle of the Mediterranean, and to be precise, we're about 58 miles south from the shores of Sicily. So we're right in the middle of the Mediterranean. And as you correctly said, we have 8,000 years of history. So when you're there, you're looking at 7 megalithic temples and all the way to the British rule with everything else that came through. The Knights of Malta, the French, the Phoenicians. Then everyone left a print of their culture, their civilization, and that is still very visible when one visits today. As you said, why aren't more Americans going? Well, we've been working to actually promote the islands. We reopened our office here in North America in 2014. We're very happy to say that we tripled the amount of Americans that have been going. Americans love Malta because of its culture and because of its uniqueness. And I feel like even more after COVID, people are looking for that off-the-beaten-path destination. And the islands of Malta is the kind of destination. You're so close to any other area, and yet you can come back with bragging rights that you've been to Malta and you've seen so much history and culture in such a small location.
It's amazing what you have. You have adopted so many sustainable practices to preserve and protect your cultural and natural history. You have UNESCO festivals that feature incredible history and wonderful cuisine. And I must say, I've tasted some of that Malta food. That is a unique combination of Europe and North Africa.
It is indeed, yes. The Malta Tourism Authority, it's really strong on commitment to both the environmental and the culture of sustainability, because those are 2 different things. And as you said, a lot of other things fall under those 2 different categories.
Not only do you have unique physical structures on land, but discoveries are being made under the water, and you have an underwater archaeological park in Zalindi Bay. I don't know how to pronounce it. It's Xlendi.
It's Zalindi Bay. It's on the island of Gozo, the sister island of Malta. Yes, it's an amazing archaeological park. Basically, it was launched in spring of last year, and it's an underwater park which encompasses an area of 67 square meters, approximately 42 miles. It allows international researchers and technical drivers to explore the history of Malta from a totally different deep-sea archaeological perspective. The marine park showcases thousands of ancient artifacts. So while you're down there, you're actually looking at history with urns and, dating back to around 2,300 years. Definitely amazing.
How much has the government invested in protecting all all of this and how many scientists are doing major research there?
Research is ongoing from the megalithic era where scholars don't know much about. That it's a lot of international researchers to come in and do studies together with the Maltese government, whether they are studying the marine biology that surrounds the island. We have clear visibility in the water, so it makes it easy. Yes, currents can be of a problem at times, but they choose the right timing to come in and do all these research. So research is done through many major spectrums, whether it's cultural, whether it's environmental, and Malta has been a pioneer in many of these projects within the EU as well.
We mentioned that some of the areas have many ideas towards sustainability. Could you describe some of the sustainable programs and projects underway?
For an example, as a tourist, you can come into Malta, and if you prefer that you wanted to see the sustainable part of Malta, you can take tours that promote sustainability. You can go to an area. There's a company called Maril. They do fascinating things where you can go in an area where they planted trees over the last 10 to 20 years, and now it's like an ecosystem where they have their own animals. You can have lunch there. You can plant trees while you're there. You can taste the honey of the local farmers. It's an amazing project that they do, and one can actually participate while they're visiting. From the regional development strategies of Gozo to the blue flag beaches to cultural tourism and sustainability to preserve these cultural heritage, there's ongoing projects going throughout the year. There will be at the first edition of the Green Vision Summit and Expo. It's happening between April 30th to May 2nd, and it targets a crowd of investors and innovators in various sustainability fields. It brings together academic researchers and industry experts to see how they can create innovative processes for sustainability investment. So this is also very important because it brings in, they are anticipating over 8,000 attendees with 200 plus industry experts. So they look at the latest trends in renewable energy, climate action, and all these ESG practices. We're very looking forward to have that in Malta.
For an environmentalist like myself who loves being in nature, what kinds of natural areas could I enjoy? What would I see in terms of trees and flowers and other animals?
If you want to experience nature, there's a lot of hikes that one can take. This takes you to the Maltese countryside where it's pretty rocky because, you see beautiful cliffs, especially on the island of Gozo. Vegetation in summers, obviously, we are very dry, so we don't have a lot of rain. If you want to visit Green Malta, I would suggest to visit in the winter from October till March, April, where Malta is a little bit more green and you're looking at the local vegetation and flowers. Some places that are a must is the presidential gardens that are found in Attard. And Valletta has beautiful gardens as well, the Upper Baraka and the Lower Baraka gardens that one can visit. Not only you see the vegetation, but you also see amazing views of the Grand Harbor. And of course, we are surrounded by the water. There's some amazing views and hikes one can take on the coast where you can see the cliffs, you see the beaches, and you see the local fishing villages that one can see while walking around the coast.
Since the islands have had human habitation for over 8,000 years, there's a wealth of history in the various places, architecture, archaeological sites, current places. It seems as though every time you take a step, you must be walking on something historic.
You are. It's definitely described as an open-air museum. So if you're in a village, you're looking at buildings that have been built the 1500s and before. If you go closer to our megalithic temples, it's taking you to another era, or the caves of prehistoric to modern, to the British rule, where you can still see the red post boxes and the red telephone booths. So it basically, every civilization that passed through left an imprint in the islands, and it's still very visible, which is pretty special for us.
You have your own language, Maltese, which is a combination of many other languages, but it's unique, and I'm sure I'm not pronouncing all these names correctly. You mentioned the island of Gozo. Where Where did that name come from?
It used to be the island of Calypso. It used to be called Calypso because the fun fact is that in Greek mythology, it is said that the island of Gozo was the island where the nymph Calypso resided and captured Ulysses and kept him there for a while until he moved on with his journey. So it used to be called Calypso no Gigia, and now it's called Gozo. So we do have a semi-Semitic language, one of the only left in the world, really, because it's derived from Arabic, Aramaic, and Latin, and it's written in Roman letters. So it's a very interesting language. But it's good to say that we have two official languages, one of which is English. So it means of communication is pretty easy for North Americans.
Read Homer's Odyssey, and you can read a little bit about the ancient history of the island.
That's right.
But the modern history is that island has over 85 ideas, plans, proposals, projects for sustainability. That's really special.
It is. The island of Gozo is special. Well, it's special to me because I am originally from the island of Gozo. So the island is special to me personally. But in 2023, Gozo launched a sustainability plan where it has, as you mentioned, 85 ideas. And it could be new economy, sustainable tourism, social development, rural development, culture, heritage, and the arts. So it kind of covers a wide agenda there.
Going back to some of that ancient history, the capital city of Malta is on another island. That capital is Valletta?
Mm-hmm. So Valletta is in the main island of Malta. It is built by the Knights of Malta, and it's named after the Grand Master La Valette. It kind of received its glory after the Great Siege, which was the Knights against the Ottoman, and they won. That's why it's called the Great Siege. And it prevented the Ottoman to take over the islands and basically entering into mainland Europe. Malta was considered as the Christian gateway to Europe, so it was very important for the Knights to kind of hold their position on the Maltese islands. And then after that was won, a lot of money was invested in Valletta, and this beautiful medieval city was created, and it is actually a UNESCO site. The whole city is a UNESCO site. So you'll see palazzos, you'll see churches, the narrow streets, really beautiful parallel narrow streets. They say that New York was actually designed to be built after the city of Valletta because of the way that the streets are parallel to each other for ventilation and easy access to the port, which was a very important positioning for Malta.
I look forward to visiting because I was reading how the city was actually built hundreds of years ago with underground tunnels, and
yes,
those underground tunnels came in handy in World War II when the islands were being bombed. Practically the whole population lived underground.
Absolutely, Nancy. It's fascinating to see. I had the opportunity to go see it last summer, and I'm local, though I live abroad, but it's such an important part of our history. As you said, it was built by the Knights, but it was also used during World War II to store grain and also to protect people when there were these air raids. Malta was the most bombarded island in World War II because we were under the British rule.
But you're an independent country.
We are indeed, yes. We are an independent country. In 1964, we got our independence from the British. We have been members of the EU since 2004.
Even though you have Christianity as an official religion, all faiths are welcome to practice their religions.
Absolutely. Actually, very interesting enough that in the past 5 years, we've developed a Jewish heritage trail. We partnered up with some tour operators and scholars on the island, and we've created this whole tour, which is pretty amazing. We're in the catacombs, the cemeteries, so there's a lot of culture there too, together with the local Jewish community in Malta.
That's so important for people to be able to see where different groups have lived safely and in a welcoming environment.
Absolutely. Very important in today's world, even more.
I'm curious where you have the oldest freestanding stone architecture in the world.
So in Malta, you find 7 megalithic temples, and they're around the island. One of the oldest is said to be on the island of Gozo again. It's a temple that is called a Gigantia, and gigant means giant, because of the giantesque structure. So the stones are really big. Now, not a lot of scholars know about this period, but it is said that people were predominantly bigger, or they had a way how to build temples, an easy way how to build these gigantic structures. They are still standing, so they are temples, they're not ruins. One of the other megalithic temples that's found on mainland Malta is subterranean. It's called the Hypogeum. It's definitely a must visit, and one has to get tickets beforehand before they travel, usually through the Heritage Malta website. But it's incredible and very mysterious. All we know is these people used to worship goddesses, predominantly the goddess of fertility, because they found a lot of structures, a lot of statues that indicate that they worshipped goddesses.
Your organization has so much wonderful information about where to stay, what to see, what to eat, how to see some of the uniqueness of the islands. So you mentioned the website. It's very simple. VisitMalta.com. VisitMalta.com.
That's right. And also Heritage Malta is heritagemalta.com, so you can get both.
I know that there are wonderful travel agencies and guides available, and even though a person can just go, walk around, is very safe and comfortable, having somebody tell you some of the details about a place makes it so much more fascinating.
Absolutely. Absolutely. On our website, you can actually find a list of quality assured guides. I always recommend that one spends at least a day or two on a guided tour because, one, you will hear all these interesting things from an expert, from a local expert. And I have to say, the local tour guides are so passionate. We're only 500,000 people on the island. We're very, very proud of our history. So it's really animating and important that you hear it from their point of view.
And we are going to talk more about eco-adventures and ecotourism in the country of Malta, as well as their sustainability efforts, when we return in a moment with my guest, Michelle Buttigieg, representative of North America for the Malta Tourism Authority.
Environmental Directions with Nancy Perlman continues with further discussion of the world's critical ecological issues. For more information, you may call 310-559-9160 or go to www.ecoprojects.org. Now, here's Nancy.
I'm speaking with Michelle Buttigieg. She is the North American representative for the Malta Tourism Authority. We're talking about your beautiful country in the Mediterranean Sea, and because it is islands, there are beaches to enjoy. But you have over 12 beaches under blue flag status. What is that?
The blue flag works towards sustainable development of beaches and marinas. We have a lot of those. It assesses water quality, it creates environmental education, it takes care of the information and the management of the beaches and the safety as well, and other services that is required on the beaches. That makes it a blue flag, and we have 12 main beaches around the islands.
How car-free are the islands? And I know that you have free public transit for commuters and students. What about for tourists?
In the past year, the authorities have created, and also it's a sustainable kind of initiative, and created public transport that became free for all commuters. As you said, students, senior citizens. This will encourage less use for their private cars. It was getting a little bit too crowded. The streets are less busy. It's also good for the environment. It is free for the locals. For tourists, it's not very costly at all.
You really don't want to be driving. A lot of the places are walkable once you get to a particular locale.
For sure. Like if you're in the Valletta area, you can walk around. St. Julian's and Slema is pretty easy. You can cross over to Gozo from Valletta on a 40-minute catamaran. Once you get there, there are public buses. So yes, you can walk, but yet you do need transportation to go from one side of the islands to another.
Wherever I travel, I like to stay in the greenest, most sustainable hotels in the locale. In the past, they were very few. Have most of the hotels now adopted green, sustainable practices?
Yes, part of the education actually goes to the local hotels. There's recycling and resources program. In 2021, right after COVID, Malta Tourism Authority came out with a 10-year tourism industry plan. Part of it was the sustainable tourism strategy. Now, what does that mean? It means that part of it is education and promoting. So country is actively increasing energy production production from solar and wind sources, stopped using heavy oils, and is using more energy-efficient building designs. So even the new hotels that are coming up and the materials of the hotels. Also, hotels and catering establishments are driven to have more improved waste management, like recycled resources, and programs aiming to eliminate food waste, because that's also really important. And the government will help that. It educates and also promotes it by giving public funding to help such projects, make it possible for the hotels to actually do it throughout the year.
What kind of eco-adventure is there? I'm a hiker. Are there trails that one can walk and hike and see various points? How tall are your mountain peaks, or do you have mountains, or are they just hills?
So no, we don't have mountain peaks. The island of Gozo, it's a little bit more hilly. That would make it a little bit more adventurous for those who like to climb hills. The good thing, Nancy, is that we are an all-year-round destination, so our weather is pretty mild. That gives you the opportunity to be part of these trekking adventures where you can bike, you can hike, you can snorkel, you can swim all around the island. And yes, it's very friendly with trails that you can get information on. The trails are not only for hikers and bikers, but also for divers. So there are diving trails as well that one can take. And wherever you are, it's an open-air museum. So wherever you're looking, even when you are in the countryside, we have cart tracks that are ancient and is said to be part of cart tracks that are found in Africa, northern Africa. So wherever you are, you're always looking at history.
Since people have inhabited these islands for thousands of years, there must not be a lot of open space, and yet I know the country has invested over 700 million euros in the creation of green spaces. Where are you going to find those spaces?
So no, I mean, look, there are the different villages and cities, but there is also a lot of countryside, and that is why Malta is set to invest 7 million until 2030. So last year in 2023, they planted 7,500 trees and shrubs in our countryside, in our piazzas, in our villages. There's a lot of playground and little gardens all around just to try to keep it green.
Again, because you are an island country, you get the cruise ships, and yet cruise ships traditionally have been very unecological, unsustainable. You have initiated a program to reduce the emissions from cruise ships by not making them keep their engines running, but providing electricity from shore.
That's right. The Valletta Cruise Port, I think this is a fantastic initiative. The Valletta Cruise Port, it's called Shore-to-Ship Project. So it's basically, as you said, when the cruise ships come into the port, they can switch off their engines and get their power on shore. To do this had to be created from the Valletta Cruise Port, and they did an amazing project. They've actually also been named the world's best cruise terminal for sustainability in 2022.
Whether or not it's locals or tourists, everywhere in the world, one of the biggest problems is finding plastic products and waste. How do you deal with recycling waste? Since I'm sure you don't have a lot of land for landfills, are you reprocessing the plastic?
Yeah, there has been an educational campaign starting from school age all the way to households. It covers the recycling of waste, reducing of water wastage. You know, we are an island and we don't get a lot of rain. And it's also an education towards limiting the use of plastic products. To start by doing that is basically banning some of the plastic products. For an example, you will never get a plastic bag anywhere you go in Malta, in any store.
There is so much history on your islands. How does a tourist decide what to see and what not to see?
Well, I think it's part of education. When you get there, it's very easy because, again, everything is so visible. Visit Malta has tourist offices everywhere, starting from the airport all the way to wherever you are located. Usually hotel concierges are really good with helping with itineraries once someone is already in Malta. Our main guardian site, We call them the guardians of our history. It's an organization that I mentioned before, which is Heritage Malta. And it is the national agency for museums, conservation of practice and cultural heritage. They have all these palazzos, medieval cities. They have a lot in their hands, and they do a great program. The message is be part of us. When you're here, you live like a local. Look at the palazzo, look behind closed doors, and you'll see how people lived and still living.
You mentioned the airport, but yet there are no direct flights. One has to take international flights from the United States to some other location in Europe and then go to Malta?
Yes, we are connected through any major hub in Europe. So if you're flying into London, Germany, Amsterdam, Paris, Rome, Istanbul, it's 1 to 2.5 hours, and it's easily connectable.
Wherever I travel, I want to see the endemic species, wildlife, plants and animals found no place else in the world but there. What would I see in Malta?
For an example, the gardens that you can visit the San Anton Garden. It's actually part of the presidential palace, and it's accessible to the public for free. And you walk in there and you see the flowers and the trees that are quintessential in Malta. You have a lot of cactus because of the weather as well. Then there's animals that you can visit. There's like a mini zoo.
There must be a lot of marine life. Do you have special marine sanctuaries or marine parks to prevent overfishing or killing of the marine life?
Yes. For cultural purposes, the archaeological site, the Archaeological Marine Park, was created in Schlendi for people to kind of go to one place to see. There are also trails and maps that we provide. The local agencies are pretty strict when you can dive, how you can dive, also for weather permitting, because some tourists would think, okay, it's not too windy. So there's a lot of guidelines that one can take.
How committed is your government and the population of your country to conservation efforts to be sure that the wildlife is safe, to be sure that the archaeological sites are preserved, to be sure that your whole cultural history is maintained?
Government works really well with the local population. And as I said, we're very proud of our history. And especially, I would say in the last 10 years, we were made aware how important preservation is. As I said, we have temples that date back 1,500 years older than Stonehenge. You could see now that they are well preserved. Government and the general population do work really well together.
I enjoy getting dressed in traditional clothes and doing traditional folk dances, participating in festivals, enjoying the music and other arts. What kind of festivals could I look forward to participating in?
Festivals, we have plenty, and it's all year round. We like to be outside, we like to dance, we like to eat, so gastronomy is really important. So you have festivals that are gastronomy-based, strawberry festivals. You can have an amazing experience in what we call Taste History, which was organized by Heritage Malta, and basically you're sitting there having a meal under the same menu like the Knights of St. John used to in the 1500s. We have our village festas. Every village has a church and has a patron saint. The locals will have weekends where they celebrate the local village festas, where you can see then band, music in the streets, food, people outside. The churches are all lit. So yes, it's a religious ceremony, but yet it's very, very cultural for those who are visiting. Some major festivals are the Jazz Festival, Baroque Festival, musical We Are the Islands of MTV. You also can experience Notte Bianca, which is where the three cities are lit with candlelight, and you'll find a lot of music around. We have a calendar on Visit Malta as well. If somebody's visiting, you put in your dates that you're going to be in Malta, and the calendar will give you what's going on in that period of time you're there.
When you're there, you're going to eat some delicious food. Could you describe some of the specialties?
Very Mediterranean-influenced cuisine with a little bit of North Africa as well, so it's a nice combination. Our local delicacy is what we call pastizzi. It's a phyllo pastry, very, very similar to like a spanakopita, like the Greeks have, but it's filled with either peas or cheese. So you'll find those everywhere, like you'll find donuts in New York City. You can sit in a piazza, have a cup of tea and a pastizzi, or just a little snack. But the cuisine is, of course, a lot of seafood, being that we are surrounded by the water, fresh seafood, fish and shellfish, pastas and sauces. And you can enjoy a Michelin star experience to, as I said, eating in a local restaurant, and please drink our local wine. It's delicious.
I am so looking forward to a visit to enjoy the food, the festivals, the history, the unique outdoor environment. It sounds absolutely beautiful. Thank you so very much for sharing with us the love that you have for your home country.
We look forward to welcome all your listeners to Malta. Again, for any information, please visit malta.com. There's a lot of ideas there. It helps you book an itinerary, makes you look into hotels and different activities that you could do in Malta. And thank you again, Nancy.
You're welcome. Thank you for being my guest.
Thank you for having me. Thank you.
I have been speaking with Michelle Buttigieg, who is the North American representative for the Malta Tourism Authority. I'm Nancy Perlman. Thank you for joining us, and do tune in again next week.
If you would like free information about these environmental issues, go to www.ecoprojects.org or call 310-559-9160. Environmental Directions with your host, Nancy Perlman, is a community affairs program of the nonprofit organization Educational Communications and this station.